I married Kevin, who works for an international company, and at his request, I switched to working part-time. That's when Kevin started looking down on me. The day after we moved into our long-desired brand-new 5-bedroom house, something shocking happened. When I got home from work, I found Kevin had invited his mistress and their child into our house.
Emma, get out right now.
He ordered me.
I'm going to live with my mistress and our kid.
Get out of here, you parasite.
Even the child, smirking, hurled insults at me. All right. I loaded the moving boxes into my car and left the house behind. 2 weeks later, I arranged to meet Kevin and return to the house.
Emma, let's go with the latest trend, such as living apart while married.
Smugly, Kevin said, and I responded. I'm single, though?
What?
In front of the stunned pair, I held up a copy of my divorce certificate. The document labeled ex-husband, Kevin Anderson, left the mistress speechless. Kevin, bewildered, looked at me as I lifted the corners of my lips. Your days of arrogance are numbered. I'll make you feel the same crushing despair that I experienced. My name is Emma, a 48-year-old housewife. I've been married to Kevin, who is 8 years younger than me, for 15 years. I met Kevin at work. Our company teamed up with our parent company to collaboratively develop a new product. Kevin wasn't particularly skilled, but his diligent work ethic, gentle demeanor, and approachable personality made him very popular among the female employees. I liked him too, but I thought being liked by someone 8 years younger would only trouble him, so I made sure not to get too close. That's why I was utterly shocked when Kevin suggested a relationship with marriage in mind.
Emma, you're so dependable, and working with you gives me a sense of security. I can't help but think how amazing it would be to build a family with someone like you.
When he said this with sparkling eyes, my heart was full. I knew some male colleagues gossiped behind my back, saying things like, "She's not cute," or "She's too full of herself for a woman who's good at her job." That's why his words made me so incredibly happy. After a year of dating, we got married. After our engagement, Kevin made a proposal.
I'm not good with kids, so I'd like for us to keep living just the two of us.
I understand. The truth was, I wanted children, but at 33, I felt fortunate just to have married a husband 8 years younger than me, so I gave up on having kids. At the time, I had no idea about Kevin's darker side. Both Kevin and I worked full-time. We earned decent salaries and were what you'd call a power couple. However, Kevin casually pushed all the housework onto me. It's a story I'd heard from others, but despite agreeing to split the chores equally, Kevin quickly broke that promise after we got married. When I hurried home after texting, "I'll be late because of overtime," Kevin greeted me with a sour expression. "Sorry for being late. I'll get dinner ready right away. Wait, where's the beef meatballs?" I had cooked them in the morning, planning to just simmer them for dinner, but they were nowhere to be found. As I rummaged through the fridge, Kevin casually spoke up.
Oh, I ate that for lunch. I took half a day off this afternoon.
What? The potato salad too?
You can just make more, can't you? So, how long until dinner's ready?
I felt utterly drained. I didn't have any more ground meat or potatoes in the fridge. If I went to the nearest grocery store, started chopping onions, and made everything from scratch, it would take more than an hour to be done. I'll have to go buy more ingredients, so dinner won't be ready until after 9. Didn't you realize I was going to use it for dinner? I couldn't help but vent, but Kevin's eyes narrowed in annoyance.
Don't lose it over me snacking on a bit of dinner. You're so uptight. I didn't have anything for lunch, so what was I supposed to do? If you've got time to complain, you should hurry up and go buy what you need.
How could he say something like that when he's the one in the wrong? I'd just gotten home, tired and hungry, and yet. Seeing my face, Kevin clicked his tongue, grabbed his jacket, and muttered,
Forget it. I'll just eat out.
Kevin calmly held out his hand in front of me. What?
It's your fault, so give me some money.
I couldn't believe my ears, but I didn't want to argue any further. I pulled out $50 from my wallet and handed it to him. That night, Kevin returned home late, his mood completely restored. But as I finished my dinner of salad and soup from the fridge, I was left with a lingering sense of frustration. On top of that, even when Kevin came home on time, he wouldn't bring in the laundry or would skip his turn to clean on weekends. In any case, Kevin left everything labeled as housework entirely to me. Whenever I confronted him, he would repeat the same excuses like a broken record.
Housework is a woman's job in the first place. I'm tired from work. Even if our salaries are almost the same, my job is way harder.
I was fed up with the constant arguments about housework when Kevin was suddenly assigned to a transfer in a rural area.
I've been appointed as the leader of a new project. Guess they have high expectations for me.
Kevin spoke proudly after coming home and changing into his loungewear. Lately, you've had more overtime, business trips, and even weekend work, haven't you? But don't push yourself too hard. And try to go easy on those drinking sessions with your team, okay?
I know.
Kevin replied with a sheepish smile. A few days after celebrating Kevin's promotion with a homemade meatloaf. While I was cleaning up after dinner, Kevin spoke to me.
Emma, this is perfect timing. Now you can quit your job.
What did you say? I stared at him, bewildered, and Kevin smiled.
Knowing you probably felt too responsible to quit before, right? Now you can be a full-time housewife.
I found myself at a loss for words. I loved my job, and ever since I started as a fresh graduate, I had worked hard even during busy times. I had told Kevin this before we got married, so what had he even been listening to?
My income is more than enough, so there's no need for you to work.
Wait, but...
See, lately you've been slacking off on housework, haven't you? Women shouldn't work. They should just focus on managing the house.
I was stunned into silence. Was he really such a traditionalist? I strongly wanted to continue my job, but the idea of sending my husband away for a solo assignment the year after we got married felt wrong. Reluctantly, I quit my job and moved to the rural area with Kevin. I didn't want to argue about housework, but I was determined to keep working, so I persistently negotiated with Kevin until he finally gave in.
Fine. I'll allow you to work part-time, but only if you increase my allowance.
With an exasperated look, Kevin said,
You know, I often go out to eat or drink with my coworkers. I need some extra spending money for that.
All right, that's fine. After that, Kevin was transferred every few years. His job at the regional branches involved offering advice on operations and helping out at busy stores. Since the supermarket chain I worked for operated nationwide, I was able to continue working at stores near each new location. Even though it was part-time work, I kept the same job for over 10 years, steadily building up experience. Despite my schedule becoming more flexible and being able to manage housework properly after switching to part-time work, Kevin still found fault with me at every turn. When Kevin was in a bad mood, even a tiny bit of dust in the corner of the hallway or a slight smudge left on the stove would prompt him to nitpick and shower me with passive-aggressive remarks.
My mom could handle all the housework perfectly, even when she was burning up with a fever. So why can't you do the same, Emma?
He would criticize me by comparing me to his stay-at-home mother. Honestly, I couldn't help but question the kind of family that would make someone do housework while running a high fever. But knowing his domineering father and obedient mother, it seemed entirely plausible, and that was terrifying. I cook after working half a day doing physical labor. Of course, there might be a few spots I miss, I said, pursing my lips. If you're so critical, why don't you help out, Kevin? Since we got married, you haven't even washed a single dish. Unable to hold back any longer, I fought back. Kevin, however, exploded in anger.
What? Are you seriously asking me, someone who works at an international company, to do housework? I'm way more exhausted than you.
Kevin's shouting made me instinctively shrink back.
Your job is just a carefree part-time gig. I graduated from a prestigious university and have a career shaping the future of this country. You, a graduate from a third-rate school, have no right to complain to me. It's arrogant.
What does the university I graduated from have to do with anything?
Shut up. Who do you think makes it possible for you to live so comfortably in this house? If you've got complaints, we can get divorced right now.
Kevin glared at me, waving a divorce form he had somehow gotten hold of without me noticing. After our fights, Kevin would lock himself in his room, refusing to come out. He would eat his meals there and ignore me whenever I tried to talk to him. For days, he wouldn't even meet my eyes. 2 days later, as I was preparing breakfast, Kevin came down the stairs in his pajamas, walked straight into the kitchen, and hugged me from behind.
I'm sorry about the other day. I went too far.
He whispered softly into my ear. I let out a quiet sigh. It was always the same. After a few days of tension, Kevin would suddenly act like a completely different person, apologizing to me with a gentle tone.
I guess I take advantage of you because you're older. My boss was giving me a hard time, and I ended up taking it out on you. I'm really sorry.
When he spoke in that somber tone, it was hard to stay mad at him. No, it's fine. I'll try harder with the housework.
Emma, you're already doing so much. Thank you for everything.
When he whispered those sweet words, I couldn't help but forgive him. In the end, I loved Kevin. He's just tired from work. He's a kind person deep down. Complaining to me is a sign that he feels safe with me. I kept coming up with excuses to suit my own narrative, unable to truly resent Kevin for his selfishness or harsh words. No matter how much patience I mustered, Kevin's harsh words didn't improve. They only grew worse over time. Eventually, he stopped offering any apologies or making up for his behavior. He began snapping over trivial things and treating me with a sullen, irritable demeanor as if it were the norm. One day, a decisive event caused my feelings for Kevin to cool completely. Kevin caught the flu. Since we lived on one-floor apartment, it wasn't like we could divide our living spaces between the first and second floors, as you might in a house. At the very least, I decided to separate our sleeping arrangements and move the bedding into the living room. I made sure to check on Kevin, bringing him soup, jelly drinks, and water while expressing concern for his condition, but he seemed dissatisfied.
What kind of wife sleeps in a different room when her husband is sick in bed?
He snapped at me in a hoarse, irritated voice. I'm sorry, but I still have work, you know? It would be a disaster if I caught it too. Feeling guilty, I tried to explain, but Kevin's eyes flared with anger.
You're such a cold woman. What's more important, me or your job?
My job is important too. Besides, Kevin, you only have a slight fever and still have an appetite, don't you?
My body feels heavy, and I'm miserable. Taking care of me is your duty as a wife, isn't it? You should devote yourself more to me.
I was inwardly exasperated, thinking he sounded like a preschooler, but knowing he was usually energetic, I thought maybe falling ill really did make him feel worse. All right. Seeing it as a sick patient's request, I couldn't refuse. I brought the bedding back to his room and stayed up all night caring for him. As expected, just as Kevin recovered, I ended up catching the flu myself. Kevin stood over me as I lay there, burning with a 104 degrees Fahrenheit fever, and coldly declared,
Don't get me sick. I'm going on a trip with my coworkers, you know?
That's right, you mentioned that. Well, could you pick up some drinks and soup for me? I used up everything we had when you were sick. Kevin's face twisted with irritation.
Can't you handle that yourself?
I'm under orders not to leave the house.
I don't care about that. You got sick because you couldn't take care of yourself. Deal with it on your own.
He spat those words and left for his trip, practically bouncing with excitement. Hearing the door close, I lay in bed, tears welling up in my eyes. Was he always this cold? He used to be so kind when we were dating. With my whole body aching and my fever raging, my mind grew foggy. My throat was parched, but the water bottle by my bedside was the last one I had, so I had to ration it carefully. I could feel the remnants of my affection for Kevin rapidly fading away. Somehow, I managed to avoid dehydration and recovered from the flu. Around that time, I decided to put a plan I had been considering for a while into action. Since our marriage, I had been living in the apartment, moving with Kevin every time he was transferred. However, I had completely run out of patience and affection for him. When his next transfer order came, I planned to stay behind in this place. Currently, Kevin has returned to the headquarters where he was working when we first got married. In the neighboring town, I own a piece of land inherited from my late parents. I decided to fulfill a long-held dream of building a spacious single-family home there. When I told Kevin about it, his eyes widened in surprise before his face lit up with excitement.
A brand new 5-bedroom house? That's so cool.
Can I design everything the way I want, from the interior to the layout?
Of course. Wow, a courtyard with parking for 3 cars, right?
Kevin seemed genuinely excited, as if the house were his own. It struck me that it had been a long time since I'd seen him smile like that. As I was planning for wide hallways, a walk-in closet, and even a theater room, the design just kept getting bigger and bigger.
Sounds like an amazing house. I bet they'll love it too.
Huh?
Oh, nothing.
Kevin chuckled softly, his shoulders shaking with amusement. 6 months later, after the house was successfully completed and all the necessary paperwork was finalized, we moved out of our apartment. Since my workplace was short-staffed, I only took the moving day off, leaving the unpacking to Kevin, who had taken a vacation day, while I went to work the next day. When I got home, I noticed an unfamiliar pink car parked in the brand new driveway. A sense of unease crept over me as I hurried toward the front door. Opening it, I saw a pair of yellow sneakers and leopard print heels carelessly thrown next to Kevin's leather shoes. From the hallway, I heard Kevin's cheerful voice, along with the high-pitched tones of a young girl and a younger woman.
Emily, how do you like my house?
Of course I love it, Dad. I can't wait to show it off to everyone. Working at a big company really pays off, huh?
And what about you, Sarah?
It's even more amazing than I imagined. Living in a house like this feels like a dream.
The shrill, grating voice of a woman echoed as she squealed with excitement.
We've been waiting so long to live together once you came back here. It was worth believing in you.
I told you I'd bring you both here, didn't I?
Kevin spoke with arrogant confidence.
Still, are you sure it's okay to kick your wife out? What if she sues you? That could get messy.
Don't worry about it. She's head over heels for me. If I dangle divorce in front of her, she'll give up the house without a fight.
Kevin continued, puffing out his chest.
I mean, I married that plain old woman out of pity. She's had it good enough for long enough.
My cheeks burned with anger. Is this really how Kevin sees me?
By the way, Dad, why did you marry someone 8 years older? You're good looking and you could have had other women, right?
Emily asked curiously. Why though?
Obviously for her money.
Kevin replied with a laugh.
She had a lot of savings. Plus, she always brought her own lunch, so I figured she'd be good at housework. And since she wasn't popular, a little sweet talk was all it took to get her to do anything.
In other words, she's basically just a maid. But now, isn't she totally living off your income? That's so pathetic.
Sarah let out a crude laugh.
Well, Sarah doesn't want to get married. I'm more comfortable cheating on her too.
If I became your wife, I'd lose the thrill of sneaking around, right?
Exactly.
As the three of them roared with laughter, I stepped into the room. The atmosphere fell silent immediately, but Kevin quickly broke it by shouting,
Emma, get out of here right now.
He barked orders at me arrogantly.
I'm going to live with Sarah and our kid.
I looked around at Kevin, who wore a malicious grin, and then at Sarah and Emily, who both appeared smug and triumphant. When my gaze landed on Sarah, a wave of fury churned inside me. She was a college student who had once worked part-time at Kevin's company. There had been rumors about her and Kevin, but he denied them, and I had trusted him. So I was betrayed after all.
You parasite. Get out of this house.
Emily sneered, her mocking laughter plastered across her face. It took me a moment to process what was happening and make sense of the situation. I see. I'm about to have the house I built taken over by my husband, his mistress, and their child. Suddenly, I no longer cared about anything. I didn't even feel like arguing anymore. In a weak voice, I muttered, "All right." I stepped outside, opened the trunk of my car, and began loading in the moving boxes. "I'll come back later for the rest of my belongings," I said flatly before leaving the house. With no destination in mind, I drove aimlessly for a while, tears streaming down my cheeks. Realizing I couldn't safely keep driving in this state, I turned onto a main road and pulled over to the shoulder. I leaned forward, resting my face against the steering wheel, and tears came pouring out in torrents. The mix of humiliation and bitterness made my heart feel like it was being torn apart. Even though my feelings had drifted away now, I had truly believed that I loved Kevin, and that's why I married him. There were signs of an affair, but I never imagined it had started right after our wedding, or that he even had a love child that old. After crying my heart out, a storm of rage consumed me. The faint remnants of affection I had for him were now completely obliterated, not a trace remaining. I gritted my teeth, shaking with anger as I made my vow. Kevin, who had completely trampled on my feelings, you'd better be ready. Enjoy yourself while you can. After finding and signing a lease for a weekly mansion, I moved in the boxes and sent Kevin a message. I need to talk to you about our future. I'll give you the divorce papers then. Kevin replied almost immediately.
I'm not planning on getting a divorce. It would hurt my career. You should be happy too. Having a husband who works for a big company is something you can brag about to your friends, right? Oh, wait, you don't have any friends.
I was instantly irritated and quickly typed my response. I didn't marry Kevin just because of his title.
Whatever. But anyway, there's no divorce. I just want to live in that house with Sarah and Emily.
How shameless can he be, making a mistress and a secret child, then saying this? At this point, I had no choice but to hire a lawyer who specializes in divorce and try to negotiate. I planned to get advice from my former colleague, Rachel, who had been through a divorce. We arranged to meet after both of our work shifts were over. The next day, I was waiting at a cafe near my office, sipping my coffee when Rachel showed up. I immediately put my hands together in apology. I'm sorry to bother you when you're busy. I really wanted to meet in person and talk.
It's fine. I've been wanting to catch up with you too. How have you been?
Rachel's face clouded when I hesitated to answer.
Has something happened with Kevin?
Actually, when I told her everything, Rachel's anger was evident.
That guy. He looks so nice, but he's a real jerk. I trusted him because he was good at his jobs and seemed so approachable.
Then Rachel suddenly paused.
Wait, wasn't Sarah the girl who had rumors about her before? She was the intern when she was 20, right? You told me he wouldn't get involved with a college student.
I lowered my voice. That's right. It was the year after we got married. Kevin cheated on me with that girl, and not only that, but he also had a child with her, and they've been carrying on their affair ever since.
I can't believe it. What a jerk.
Rachel's face turned bright red with fury.
At this point, I say we get a huge settlement and get some revenge. But maybe that's not enough. Either way, I need to make him regret betraying you to the core.
It's common to hear about men buying apartments for their mistresses, but to actually bring them home and kick out the wife? That's just insane. And now he says he doesn't want a divorce? That's so selfish. As I vented, Rachel nodded in agreement.
He's 40 this year, right? Is he a section chief now? If things go well, maybe he'll be a manager in a few years.
The thought of the man who destroyed his family bossing around coworker at work makes me sick.
Emma, you're just going to sit back and watch?
Rachel smirked and I shook my head. Not a chance. After being treated like this, I'm not just going to accept it quietly.
Then first, we need to do a background check on him.
She looked me in the eye and said,
I'll introduce you to the detective agency I used back in the day. It's expensive, but reliable. And if you want a lawyer who specializes in infidelity, the one I hired will put your mind at ease.
Yeah, please. I've done some research, but nothing feels right. As I finished my coffee, she reassured me.
I'm always here if you need to talk. I'll listen to your complaints too, so don't hesitate to reach out.
Thanks, I really appreciate it. I thanked her, and without wasting any time, I decided to call the detective agency she recommended. A month later, the investigation results were in. I contacted Kevin and told him I wanted to come to the house. When I arrived around noon, Sarah and Emily were waiting at the door to greet me, as if it was completely normal. Walking into the living room, I noticed a gold-plated display shelf that looked completely out of place with the Scandinavian-style decor. There was also a cheap-looking sofa set taking up space. Sarah, with a haughty tone, spoke to me.
You're the first guest, aren't you? Emily baked cookies as a welcome gift. Please, help yourself.
Cookies? I wonder if they're laced with poison. As I looked at Sarah and Emily grinning, that thought crossed my mind.
You wouldn't refuse cookies made by a child, would you?
Of course not. I'll have some. I reluctantly answered and sat down on the sofa they showed me. Kevin was happily watching Sarah and Emily fussing over me, clearly enjoying the attention. As I felt disgusted by how much the interior had changed from the design I had worked on, tea and cookies were brought in.
Here you go, Emma. Enjoy.
Thank you. I'll have some. I forced a smile, picked up a cookie, and tried to bite into it. But it was so hard, like a rock, that I almost dislocated my jaw.
Emma, aren't Emily's cookies delicious?
Kevin said with a grin, looking at me.
She wants to be a pastry chef when she grows up. She's got a bright future ahead.
Stop it, Dad. You're embarrassing me.
Their interaction, which seemed so sweet from the outside, only made me more furious. He had refused to have a family life with me, claiming he hated kids, but now he had gone and had a daughter with his mistress. What was I even doing here? What was my role in all of this? I felt utterly helpless.
So what do you want today?
I came to talk about our divorce, obviously. I answered coldly, and Sarah wiggled her body with a smirk.
Don't get the wrong idea, Emma. I'm not planning to marry Kevin, you know?
Sarah leaned into Kevin, speaking in a sweet, sugary voice.
If we divorce, it's going to affect his career, right? I don't want to cause any trouble for the man I love.
Sarah is my #1 supporter.
Kevin smiled, his eyes softening.
Anyway, Emma, let's try one of those trendy living apart together marriages, huh? I know you're struggling with that low salary of yours. But hey, do your best.
Well, you're a parasite, right? Without Dad's money, you'd be out on the street. But don't worry, Dad loves me and my mom, so.
At Emily's words, Sarah grinned maliciously.
You're the one being dumped, so you're the one to blame. Tough luck.
The three of them laughed hysterically, and I replied coldly. Wait, I'm single, you know?
What?
Kevin, Sarah, and Emily blinked in confusion as I slapped my marriage certificate down on the table. The three of them gasped when they saw the document with former husband Kevin Anderson written on it.
What's going on here?
You handed this to me, didn't you, Ken? And you even signed it for me. I said it in an icy tone. Remember when we fought before? You threatened me. You said, if you don't listen to me, I'll divorce you.
What? Did that really happen?
Kevin's face twitched with tension. When I was moving my belongings, I looked through the bedroom chest and found it. So I submitted it. Kevin's face turned bright red as he began shouting.
You had no right to do that. What if I can't get any more promotions because of this?
Yeah, you better take responsibility for this.
Oh, come on. Pretending to be something you're not when you're just a regular employee. Kevin froze as I chuckled softly.
What?
Kevin pressed his lips together tightly, trembling, while Sarah and Emily looked at him with puzzled expressions. A friend of mine knows someone at your office. I asked them to look into a few things. With a smile I spoke, and Sarah showed signs of panic.
Well, Kevin is an elite, right? He works at the headquarters of a foreign company and holds a department manager position?
His annual income is over $1 million, and he's often called as an advisor across the country. So he must be transferred a lot, right? He graduated from a prestigious university. He's so smart.
I couldn't help but burst into laughter at the confused expressions of the two. Manager? This guy is just a section chief. Sure, he got that promotion, but after that, he's just messed up repeatedly and got sent to smaller cities. The idea that he's good at his job is a total lie. Sarah stiffened for a moment, but quickly plastered a smile on her face and wrapped her arms around Kevin from behind.
Oh, Kevin, you're being so distant. Did you think I'd leave just because of that?
That's right, Kevin. You're lucky to have such a sweet mistress. Why not just come clean and tell the truth? I gave Kevin a friendly piece of advice with a smile. Kevin had been staring down at the table, silent for a while now. If you can't say it yourself, then I guess I'll just expose everything for you. I took out the photo and the investigation report from my bag and spread them out on the table. Sarah and Emily leaned in, their curiosity piqued. Sarah's face immediately changed color.
Who is the woman with Kevin and the 4 children? Who are they?
This little girl looks a lot like me.
At this, Sarah's eyes went wide.
No way.
As you can probably guess, they're Kevin's mistress and his secret children. Sarah and Emily gaped in shock. 1. After pointing at Sarah with my finger, I began counting the photos one by one. 2, 3, 4, 5.
What's this?
The ranking of the mistresses. I smiled at Sarah with a touch of sympathy, and Sarah's eyes went wide. Looks like you're in luck, Sarah. Both in terms of when she was created and her priority. It seems like you're number 1. I explained kindly to the speechless Sarah. Kevin, every time he made a mistake at work and got transferred, he'd go to clubs and have mistresses and children in different places. He told the mistresses he was married, but he kept the other affairs a secret from them. Glancing at Kevin, who was looking down, I continued. Even when he was transferred to other places, he would still meet his mistresses during business trips or vacations and give them money for living expenses. At this point, it's like polygamy. So elegant, like the aristocrats of the past. In front of me, Sarah was shaking her fists in anger. As for Emily, she was on the verge of tears.
Daddy, this can't be true, right? You said you loved Mom and me. Come on, say something.
But we're the most important, right?
Sarah wrapped her arm around Kevin's back and looked up at him with pleading eyes.
He takes us to fancy restaurants, gives us gifts all the time, and invites us over to his house like this.
Yeah, right? The house is an amazing gift. We're being treated like special, aren't we?
Sarah and Emily hurriedly tried to convince themselves, speaking fast. I interrupted them. I have no intention of giving you this house. Immediately, the two of them snapped at me.
It's none of your business.
Yeah, keep quiet, parasite.
I'm just being kind enough to let you know early. I lifted my lips into a small smile and calmly told them. I'll be putting it up for sale next weekend, so you need to move out by then.
What?
What a waste. I had this house built with my savings, but I guess I don't want to live in a house where his mistresses and secret children are living. After a brief silence, Sarah and Emily screamed in unison.
What's that supposed to mean?
This is Dad's house, right?
No, it's not. This house is built on land I inherited from my parents, and it's in my name. I plan to live here alone after the divorce. I shot a harsh look at Sarah and Emily, who were left speechless. And yet, you're kicking out the owner and bringing in mistresses and secret children. What were you thinking?
You were able to buy this house because of me.
After staying quiet for a while, Kevin finally spoke up. He glared at me with intense eyes and shouted angrily.
You were able to save money because I made you work, listening to your selfishness. It was thanks to me, the elite, that you even had the luxury to do that. Not that a useless person like you could ever make it happen on your own.
Kevin clenched his fists, shaking with rage, and shouted, spitting as he spoke.
You're so cocky. Have you forgotten the favor I did by marrying you? Who do you think you are?
Okay, I get it. I casually tuned him out when Emily seemed to notice something.
Dad, you're just a regular employee now, right? I mean, taking care of not just us but all your other mistresses too? You must be pretty rich.
Well, he works at a big company and makes good money.
Too bad. I spread Kevin's credit card statement out on the table, and Sarah froze. Emily peeked over from the side and let out a scream.
$20,000 in debt? Are you serious?
It's addressed to me, so don't open my mail.
I opened it by mistake. Kevin clicked his tongue at Sarah and Emily's reactions. Opening this is a real eye-opener. You've got debt, revolving credit, and even loans from shady places. All in all, it's around $50,000, right? I chuckled mockingly. You're on a lower salary than me, but you're still trying to keep up appearances by splashing money on mistresses and hidden children. No wonder it's come to this.
That's a lie.
Kevin, now standing up in anger, shouted at me.
You're just a part-time worker. There's no way you earn more than me.
I knew you'd say that. When I shoved my payslip in front of Kevin's face, his eyes widened as if they were about to fall out, and he slumped down weakly onto the sofa. He held his head in his hands and muttered in a voice so faint it almost disappeared.
Emma makes more money than me. This must be some kind of mistake.
I chuckled softly. I took an exam a few years ago and became a full-time employee. My achievements were recognized, and now I'm the branch manager of this area. Kevin's face went pale. That's why my annual income is $10,000 higher than yours. Otherwise, I wouldn't have been able to save up enough to build a house.
Why didn't you tell me? Hiding things from your husband is cowardly.
You're the one who's been creating lovers and hidden children all over the place. And now you're talking? I shot back sharply at Kevin, who was visibly shaken. I'll make it clear, even with a low salary and debt, I'll still be demanding alimony. Since it's been a long time, it's going to be a hefty amount. You better be ready for that.
I'm barely getting by as it is. There's no way I can do more. Hey, what's going on with you two?
Kevin stopped Sarah and Emily, who were about to leave the room with their bags and coats in hand.
We can't deal with this anymore. We're leaving.
Where are you going? Isn't this your home?
It's not Dad's house, it's Emma's house, right?
Emily smirked at the corner of her lips.
You called Emma a parasite, but isn't it actually Dad who's the parasite? A lying, debt-ridden father like that is no use to us.
Sarah sighed in frustration.
I thought it was fine being his mistress since he spoiled me, but a guy buried in debt with zero future prospects? What a waste of time to even be with him.
An old man?
I'll find a better man.
Bye.
Don't contact me again.
After Sarah and Emily left without a second thought, Kevin, who had been chasing them to the door, collapsed to his knees.
Sarah, Emily, come back.
As Kevin started crying, I finished packing. That's when Kevin, with a pitiful voice, tried to make a suggestion.
Hey, let's remarry.
What?
I'll forgive you for submitting the divorce papers on your own. So, let's start over. I realized you're the most important to me.
Exasperated, I pulled my phone from my pocket and showed it to Kevin. It's too late. I had Rachel's friend call your boss and give him a live update. Kevin's face went pale. The mistakes I made before were just handled with a transfer to a different region, but this time it's definitely a dismissal. He let out a soundless cry and collapsed right there. I didn't even glance back at Kevin as I left the house. Kevin, who had given up on rebuilding with me, reportedly kept pestering Sarah and Emily to get back together. However, Sarah had all her belongings moved to her new apartment and blocked Kevin's contact information. In a state of utter disbelief, Kevin showed up at work the next day, only to be fired. During lunch, his coworkers showed him the video of the scene at my house, and his boss, who was a devoted family man, was furious. He was also informed by the real estate agent that the house would be sold, and he reluctantly moved into a shabby apartment. He even begged me for reconciliation, but when I told him, "If you keep pushing, I'll take this to court," he finally seemed to give up. When I filed for alimony through a lawyer, both Sarah and Kevin agreed to it without hesitation. They took out loans to pay me, so Sarah reportedly took on additional work at a pub and increased her daytime shifts. She has been working nonstop, and her once glamorous appearance is now barely recognizable. Kevin also works multiple part-time jobs, desperately trying to pay off the massive debt he accumulated. Of course, he has neither the time nor the money to visit the clubs he once loved. With the money from selling my house and the alimony from both of them, I moved into a luxury apartment. Though I regretted letting go of the meticulously designed house I had built, the simple and functional apartment I have now is quite nice. I love the view of the city lights through the large windows. Now that I'm no longer forced to do housework by Kevin, I switched to a full-time job. From now on, I plan to fully enjoy my life, watching movies, traveling, and experiencing everything I had to put off until now.